The $1 trick that saves you from every bank fee forever. There's a $1 trick, literally, that if you set up today, will stop almost every bank fee you'll ever get hit with for the rest of your life. I know exactly how that sounds. I know it sounds like clickbait, like one of those thumbnails with a red circle and an arrow pointing at nothing. It's not. I've used this exact thing for 6 years. Haven't paid a single overdraft fee, maintenance fee, or minimum balance fee since I set it up. And it took me about 90 seconds total. Not 90 minutes on hold. 90 seconds. Stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to open your banking app and actually do it. And I'm going to walk you through every single click. Here's how I even found out about this in the first place. A few years back, I kept getting hit with these random $12 monthly maintenance fees on my checking account. No warning, no text, nothing. I'd just check my balance, and there it'd be. Gone. Happened twice before I actually paid attention to it. So the third time, I called the bank, genuinely annoyed at this point, and asked why. And the answer honestly kind of stunned me. Turns out I'd dropped below some minimum balance requirement I didn't even know existed for like 4 days, mid-month. And that was apparently enough to trigger the fee for the entire month. Not because I overspent. Not because I did anything remotely irresponsible. Just because my balance dipped for 96 hours out of a 30-day month. And nobody had ever told me that mattered. And look, $12 doesn't sound like a lot in isolation. But I want you to actually sit with what that number becomes over time, because this is the part people underestimate the most. $12 a month is $144 a year. Over a decade, that's almost $1,500 gone for doing literally nothing wrong, just for having a checking account that occasionally dipped below a number I was never even told existed. And I'm one person. Multiply that across the tens of millions of Americans with checking accounts at major banks, and you start to understand why banks genuinely don't go out of their way to warn you about this stuff. It's not a bug in the system. It's the business model. So, back to the phone call. I asked the rep, half joking, half genuinely desperate at this point, is there any actual way to just never have this happen to me again? Not, can you refund this one? I'd already gotten a few of those refunded as one-time courtesies, which, if you watched my last video, you know exactly what that phrase means by now. I wanted the permanent fix, and she told me something that most people never even think to ask about, because most people don't know there's anything to ask about in the first place. She said, open a savings account, link it to your checking for overdraft protection, and keep exactly $1 in it. That's it. $1. I actually laughed out loud on the phone, because it sounded way too simple to be a real solution to a problem that had been costing me money for months. But here's why that tiny, almost insulting amount of money does something genuinely huge behind the scenes. And this is the part I actually want you to understand, not just copy blindly. Most banks automatically waive monthly maintenance fees on checking accounts if you have a linked savings account attached to that same checking account, regardless of the actual balance sitting inside that savings account. A dollar counts exactly the same as $10,000 for this specific purpose. Why? Because technically, the moment you open that second account, you now have multiple accounts with the bank, which on the back end bumps you into a completely different customer classification with an entirely different set of rules attached to it. Same person, same income, same everything. Just now, you're filed under a different internal category because there are 2 accounts instead of 1. And separately, completely separately, that linked savings account also acts as a built-in financial backup. If your checking account ever dips low or goes negative, say you forget a subscription renewed, or a bill hits a day earlier than you expected, the bank automatically pulls from that $1 in savings first, before anything else happens. Now, obviously, $1 isn't going to cover a real overdraft. But here's the mechanism that matters. Many banks will either fully waive the overdraft fee if there was any linked account to pull from, treating it as a protected transfer situation instead of a straight overdraft. Or at minimum, they charge you a much smaller, insufficient transfer fee, which tends to run somewhere around $10 instead of the standard $35. So that $1 is quietly doing two completely different jobs at once. One of them prevents a fee entirely. The other one shrinks a fee that does happen. And I want to be really clear about something here, because I don't want this to sound like some secret hack that's about to get patched by an update next week. It's not a loophole. Banks design their systems this way, on purpose, deliberately, because a linked savings account signals to their internal system that you're a relationship customer instead of a single account customer. And relationship customers get fewer fees baked directly into pretty much every major US bank's fee structure. This isn't specific to one bank being generous. Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, US Bank, most of the big regional banks. This same basic structure exists at almost all of them, just dressed up with slightly different internal names, depending on where exactly you bank. Some call it a relationship banking tier. Some call it a linked account discount. Doesn't matter what they call it on their website. The underlying mechanism is functionally the same thing everywhere. So here's exactly how you set this up, right now, step by step, while you're watching this video, because I don't want this to be one of those, step 1, open your banking app, or call them if you genuinely prefer talking to a human, and open a savings account if you don't already have one attached to your checking. Most major banks let you do this entirely inside the app now, in under 2 minutes, with 0 branch visit required. You're not applying for a loan here. You're opening a basic savings account. This is about as low friction as banking gets. Step 2, and this is the step people skip and then wonder why it didn't work. Link that new savings account to your checking, specifically for overdraft protection, not just as some random separate account sitting there, disconnected from everything. This is usually a toggle or a setting buried somewhere labeled overdraft protection or linked accounts, or sometimes backup funding source. If you genuinely can't find it in the app, that's the exact question to ask a rep, word for word. Can you link my new savings account to my checking for overdraft protection? That sentence alone gets it done in most cases. Step 3, transfer $1 into the new savings account. Genuinely, $1 is enough for the underlying mechanism to activate in most cases. Because remember, it's the existence of the linked account that matters for the fee waiver piece, not the balance. That said, I'd personally recommend going a little bigger if you can swing it, $20 or $50, something like that. Purely so that if you ever do have a real overdraft situation, that account can actually absorb some of it instead of just technically preventing a fee on paper while your checking account still goes negative underneath it. Now, a fair question, and I'd be lying to you if I pretended this was flawless, because nothing in banking ever is. Does this work at every single bank, with 0 exceptions? Honestly, no. A handful of online-only banks and a lot of credit unions already waive monthly fees, regardless of linked accounts, because their whole pitch to customers is no fees, period. So this trick specifically matters most if you're banking with a big traditional bank. Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, US Bank. That entire tier of banks that built fee revenue into their model from the start. And overdraft protection transfers themselves sometimes come with their own small transfer fee, usually somewhere around $10, which is still dramatically cheaper than a standard $35 overdraft fee, but it's not literally 0 cost in every single scenario. So genuinely, go check your specific bank's fee schedule for that one detail before you assume this is completely free no matter what happens. They're just never volunteering it. Because why on earth would they volunteer to make less money off you? The second you call your bank and specifically ask, word for word, how do I permanently avoid every monthly fee on this account? Most reps will walk you through exactly this, step by step, with zero pushback, because it's a completely standard, sanctioned, bank-approved process. It's not a secret. It's just quiet. And that quietness is really the whole theme here. Nothing I've told you in this video is illegal, or a hack, or something the bank doesn't want you to know in some conspiratorial sense. It's a completely ordinary feature of how checking and savings accounts interact with each other that 90-some% of customers simply never activate, because nobody ever tells them it exists, and asking feels like a weirdly specific thing to bring up at a bank counter. So do the 90-second version today. Right now, actually. Not later. Not, I'll get to it this weekend. Open your banking app while this video is still playing if you can. Check whether you already have a linked savings account. If you do, great. You're already set. If you don't, open one. Link it specifically for overdraft protection. Drop a few dollars into it, and you're done. That's genuinely the entire video, distilled down to one action. If this just saved you from a fee you were about to get hit with next month, subscribe. Because next week, I'm covering the exact wording that gets your bank to waive a fee. You've already been charged, after the fact, retroactively. Most people don't even know you're allowed to ask for that, let alone how often it actually works. Same kind of trick, completely different moment. See you in the next one. Subscribe and